Hi, I'm Catherine Lee, and I froze mid-step as I spotted my husband's ex-girlfriend, Jessica, casually seated at our backyard table. Apparently, my mother-in-law, Margaret, decided our son's 10th birthday party was the perfect opportunity to stage an impromptu reunion. The thought of consulting me, his actual mother, must not have crossed her mind. Jessica looked exactly like she did in the countless photos Margaret kept prominently displayed in her home, photos she conveniently forgot to remove, even after Mike and I married 7 years ago. The same perfect blonde hair, that rehearsed smile, and a designer dress so polished it probably cost more than the entire party budget. Isn't this wonderful? Margaret's voice chirped behind me, her hand clamping onto my shoulder like a vice. Jessica was in town, and I thought Tommy would just love to meet her. After all, she was such an important part of Mike's life during college. I glanced over and saw my son Tommy showing Jessica his new science kit. His face glowed with excitement while Mike stood a few steps away, looking like a schoolboy caught sneaking out of class. That guilty expression of his, it was the same one he wore every time Margaret bulldozed over my feelings. "Margaret," I said through clenched teeth, "could we speak inside for a moment?" In the kitchen, I folded my arms tightly, trying to rein in my frustration. Why would you invite Mike's ex to our son's birthday party without discussing it with us first? Margaret waved a manicured hand dismissively. "Oh, Catherine, don't be so sensitive. Jessica's family has known Mike since childhood. Her father and my late husband were business partners. She's practically family. And I'm not?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Margaret tilted her head, her pearls glinting under the light. While she sniffed, "Jessica just understands us, our traditions, our world. She grew up in it. You're different, dear." Different. The polite way to say I wasn't good enough. The woman from a modest background who, in Margaret's eyes, had derailed her son's perfect future. Through the window, I saw Jessica laugh at something Mike said, her hand brushing his arm with a casual familiarity. Meanwhile, Tommy eagerly showed her his birthday presents, and she nodded with exaggerated interest, playing the role of the doting almost stepmother. Besides, Margaret continued, Tommy should know about his father's past. Jessica was going to be his mother, after all, before you came along. The room spun slightly. "What do you mean, was going to be his mother?" Margaret's eyes widened in mock surprise. "Oh dear, didn't Mike tell you? He and Jessica were briefly engaged before you. They had it all planned, the house, the future, even their children's names. Why, Tommy was Jessica's choice. She's always adored that name. Tommy, the name Mike and I had supposedly chosen together. The name that honored my late father, who never got to meet his grandson. Catherine," Mike's voice carried from the yard. "Tommy wants to cut the cake." Forcing a smile, I returned to the party with a Superman cake I'd stayed up until 2 a.m. decorating. Guests gathered around the table as I set it down. But before I could light the candles, Jessica's voice cut through the chatter. "Oh, Tommy," she cooed, "did you know your dad used to make the most amazing superhero cakes? My mom's pastry chef taught him during one of our family vacations." I almost dropped the knife. Mike had told me he'd never baked before we met. "Mom," Tommy tugged at my sleeve, his wide eyes full of hope. "Can Jessica come to my next birthday too? She promised to tell me more stories about when Dad was younger." Margaret beamed across the table, the picture of triumph. "What a splendid idea. Family should stick together, don't you think, Catherine?" I stood there, cake knife in hand, as cracks began to form in the carefully built world I thought was mine. This wasn't just about a surprise guest anymore. This was about my place in my own family's story, and apparently, I'd been cast in a much smaller role than I'd imagined. What I didn't realize at the time was that this birthday party was just the opening act in Margaret's plan to rewrite our family's future. The week after Tommy's birthday felt like sinking into quicksand. Each morning, I'd wait to find new photos on Margaret's Facebook page, carefully curated shots of Jessica with Tommy, Jessica with Mike, all captioned with gems like family memories, #birthday fun, #family first. Conveniently, I wasn't in any of them. But it was the text messages that really got under my skin. "Tommy had such a wonderful time with Jessica," Margaret wrote. "She's offered to help with his science fair project. Isn't that thoughtful? After all, with her PhD in chemistry, she's much more qualified than Well, I set my phone down at my desk during lunch break, my appetite gone. A knock at my classroom door startled me. Mrs. Lee. It was Sarah, the mother of Tommy's best friend. Her expression made my stomach drop. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, Sarah began, closing the door behind her. But yesterday at soccer practice, your mother-in-law was there, with another woman. They were talking to the other parents about Tommy's real family background. My throat tightened. What did they say? Sarah hesitated, glancing at the floor. Margaret was showing old photos, saying Jessica comes from this prestigious family and how she and Mike were meant to be together, until you came between them. I clenched the edge of my desk. Anything else? She sighed. She mentioned custody arrangements, something about how, since Jessica picked Tommy's name and has a deep history with Mike, she might have a case for visitation rights. Custody arrangements? The room tilted, and I gripped my desk harder. That evening, I confronted Mike in the kitchen. He was cooking, something he'd started doing ever since Jessica casually mentioned her culinary skills at the party. Did you know your mother's spreading rumors about custody rights? I asked, my voice strained. Mike froze mid-stir, the spoon clattering against the pan. She's what? Apparently, she and Jessica told parents at soccer practice about legal arrangements. Care to explain? He ran a hand through his hair, a dead giveaway of his nerves. Look, Mom's just having a hard time letting go. Jessica was around for a long time, and what about the engagement? I cut him off. Were you ever going to tell me about that? The silence was deafening. It wasn't serious, he mumbled at last. We were young. Not serious. You planned our son's name with her. That's not fair, he said quickly. Yes, Jessica liked the name Tommy, but I chose it with you because of your dad. It wasn't about her. Then why is she suddenly everywhere? Soccer practice, school events, Margaret's practically running a PR campaign for your ex-girlfriend. Mike set down the spatula, his face pale. Maybe we should invite them both over for dinner? Clear the air. I stared at him in disbelief. Dinner? Your mother invited your ex to our son's birthday without telling me, is spreading rumors about custody rights, and your solution is dinner. They're not rumors if there's some truth to them, came a voice from the doorway. We both turned to see Margaret standing there, house key in hand, the emergency key we'd given her for actual emergencies. What are you doing here? I demanded. Margaret strode in, placing a manila envelope on the counter. Jessica's family lawyer drew these up. Given her history with Mike and her connection to Tommy's name, he thinks she might have a case for visitation rights. Mike looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Mom, that's insane. Jessica has no legal rights to Tommy. Margaret's smile was razor sharp. Not yet. But considering your hasty marriage to Catherine and Jessica's long-standing place in the family, the courts might see it differently. Get out, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. Margaret blinked. Excuse me? Take your papers and get out of my house. Her face hardened. Catherine, don't be difficult. We're just trying to do what's best for Tommy. A child needs the right influences, people who understand family legacy. I grabbed the envelope, tore it in half, and shoved it into her hands. My son has all the influence he needs. Leave or I'll call the police. Margaret's parting words stung as she walked out the door. This isn't over, dear. Jessica's family has excellent lawyers. I turned to Mike, who was still frozen in place. You need to decide, right now, if you're going to let your mother destroy our family for some fantasy about Jessica. Because I won't stand for it. The smoke alarm blared, the smell of burning food filling the kitchen. Dinner was ruined, and it felt like my marriage might be going up in flames right along with it. The breaking point came 3 days later at Tommy's science fair. I'd taken the afternoon off from teaching to help set up his volcano project, the one we'd spent weeks perfecting together. But when we arrived at the school gym, Jessica was already there, standing next to our table, with a completely different project. Look, Mom, Tommy exclaimed, running ahead. Jessica helped me make a real chemical reaction. It's way cooler than a volcano. My heart sank as I saw our carefully crafted volcano shoved under the table, replaced by an elaborate chemistry setup that screamed professional adult help. Margaret hovered nearby, phone poised to capture the moment. Isn't it wonderful? She beamed. Jessica spent all weekend working on this with Tommy. She picked him up after soccer practice. I told the school I'd authorized it. The room spun. You did what? Oh, Catherine. Jessica stepped forward, her voice dripping with Fox sympathy. Didn't Mike tell you? Margaret added me to Tommy's approved pickup list as a family friend. That was it. Something inside me snapped. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I should have called weeks ago. Sarah, remember that lawyer friend you mentioned? The one who specializes in family law? I need her number. Now. The next morning, Mike woke to divorce papers on his bedside table. What is this? He asked, his face pale. A choice. I replied calmly. You can either stand up to your mother and Jessica right now, or you can explain to a judge why you let them harass and undermine your wife. I pulled out a folder and laid it beside the papers. Here's documentation of every unauthorized pickup from school, every manipulative text from your mother, every social media post trying to erase me from my own family, plus statements from other parents about the custody rumors. Mike sat heavily on the bed. Catherine, I never meet. I also have proof that Jessica's family lawyer isn't licensed in our state. Those custody papers, complete fabrication. Your mother committed fraud presenting them as legal documents. His head snapped up. What? So here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to call your mother and Jessica, put them on speaker, and you're going to end this. 20 minutes later, Margaret's voice filled the room. Mike, darling, what's this about? Mom, Mike said, his voice steadier than I'd ever heard it. You need to stop. No more unauthorized pickups. No more surprise visits. No more Jessica. If you keep this up, Catherine will file for a restraining order against both of you. But Tommy's science project, Jessica began. One about 4 hours ago, I cut in with the volcano we made together. Turns out the judges prefer projects actually made by students over ones manufactured by overstepping adults. Silence. And Margaret, I added. The school is investigating how an unauthorized adult removed my son from campus. Imagine how your country club friends will react when you're banned from school grounds. You wouldn't dare, Margaret hissed. Try me, I said. I've spent weeks being polite, being understanding. Those days are over. Later that evening, as Mike and I watched Tommy play in the backyard, my phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. I suppose I owe you an apology. No, I replied. You owe Tommy an apology for dragging him into adult drama, confusing him about his family, and putting your own wants above his needs. Her response came quickly. You're right. I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. 2 weeks later, we celebrated Tommy's science fair win with a small family dinner. No surprise guests, no hidden agendas, just us. Mom, Tommy asked as I served dessert, can you teach me how to make a chocolate volcano cake next time? I caught Mike's smile across the table, a real one, not the strained, nervous ones he'd been wearing lately. Of course, sweetie, I said. Some traditions are worth keeping in the family. As I looked around the table, I realized something important. Sometimes protecting your family means being willing to fight for it, even if that means standing up to the people who think they're fighting for it too.